Most people buy canned meat without thinking very much about it. They grab what looks familiar, throw it into the cart, and assume it's all basically the same. But once you actually rely on canned meat for more than convenience, you notice something quickly. Some canned meats are genuinely useful. They're filling, reliable, easy to eat. Others, not so much. They look practical on the shelf, but once you open them, you realize they don't really do much. Low protein, strange texture, not filling, or just difficult to eat consistently. That's the difference most people don't think about until they depend on what they bought. So instead of guessing, let's go through 7 canned meats that actually make sense to stockpile, and the reasons some options work much better than others. Start with tuna. This is one of the most common canned meats for a reason. It's simple, high in protein, easy to eat and available almost everywhere. But the important detail most people ignore is what it's packed in. Tuna packed in oil gives you more calories. That matters more than people realize, because once food becomes important, calories suddenly matter a lot. Tuna in water feels lighter, cleaner, but it also leaves people hungry faster. That's why oil-packed tuna is often the more practical option for storage. Now, canned chicken. This is one of the easiest meats to work with. It's familiar, flexible, and combines well with other foods. Crackers, rice, wraps, beans. That versatility matters, because repetitive food becomes difficult over time. The easier something is to combine with other meals, the more useful it becomes. But quality matters heavily here. Some canned chicken is dry enough to make eating it unpleasant. That's where people quietly regret buying cheap versions. Texture matters more than most people expect. Now, canned salmon. This one gets overlooked constantly, but it's one of the more complete canned proteins available. Rich flavor, good fats, high protein, and surprisingly filling. Some versions even contain soft, edible bones. That turns people away initially. But those bones also provide extra nutrients. That's one reason canned salmon stays popular with people who actually use long-term food storage regularly. Now, Spam. This is probably the most debated canned meat. Some people absolutely love it, others refuse to touch it, but from a purely practical perspective, it makes sense. High calories, long shelf life, ready immediately, and extremely filling. That's what gives it value. Not the image, not nostalgia. Function. Spam works because it provides dense energy in a compact form, and unlike some lighter canned meats, a small amount actually feels substantial. Now, sardines. These are one of the most nutrient-dense options you can buy. Small cans, big value, high protein, healthy fats, long shelf life, and surprisingly filling considering their size. But there's one obvious issue. Not everyone enjoys them. Strong smell. Strong flavor, that matters because honestly, realistic food storage always beats theoretical food storage. A food can look perfect on paper, but if you hate eating it, you won't rely on it consistently. That's important to understand. Now, corned beef. This is heavy, dense, salty, very filling, and one of the strongest canned meats when calories matter most. A small portion goes a long way. That's what makes it valuable. But it's also rich, too rich for some people to eat regularly. That's why balance matters. Corned beef works best as part of a mix, not your entire canned meat supply. Now, canned beef chunks, or stew meat. This is where canned meat starts feeling more like a real meal. You're getting actual pieces of meat, better texture, more substance, less processed feeling overall. That changes the experience completely. Because, long-term food storage becomes psychologically easier when foods still feel normal. That's something people underestimate constantly. Morale matters. Familiarity matters. Feeling like you're eating real food matters. Now let's talk about what usually doesn't work very well. Low-protein canned meat spreads, very small portions, and products that are mostly sauce or filler. These often look useful, until you actually eat them. Then you realize they don't satisfy you at all. That's where many people quietly waste money, honestly, because shelf life alone doesn't make something practical. Function matters more. Step back for a moment. Because this isn't about finding one perfect canned meat, it's about understanding trade-offs. That's the real skill. Some meats provide more calories, some provide better protein, some are easier to combine with meals, some are simply easier to tolerate, repeatedly. All of those factors matter. Most people think food storage is just about lasting a long time, but long-term practicality matters just as much. Would you actually eat this regularly? Would it still feel manageable after multiple meals? Would it combine easily with other foods? Those questions matter more than marketing. Imagine opening your cupboard and seeing only canned meats you don't really enjoy. Eventually, you stop wanting to eat them. That's where storage fails, not because food disappears, but because people avoid using what they bought. That's why realistic storage works better. Foods you genuinely tolerate. Foods that combine well. Foods that feel practical in everyday life. Another thing people overlook is how much protein affects fullness. High-protein foods stay with you longer. That changes how quickly you move through supplies. A filling meal stretches everything. A weak meal does the opposite. That's why protein-dense canned meats consistently outperform lighter options. Storage conditions matter too. Canned meats last a long time, but they still need proper conditions. Cool temperatures, dry environments, undamaged cans. A heavily dented can isn't just cosmetic, that's something people shouldn't ignore. Rotation matters too. People often buy canned meat, then forget about it completely. Years later, it's still sitting untouched. The smarter approach is simple. Use older cans first. Replace gradually. Keep everything moving naturally. That prevents waste and keeps your storage realistic. And maybe that's the biggest lesson in all of this. Practical always beats extreme. You don't need hundreds of random canned meats. You need foods that genuinely make sense, foods that fill you up, foods you'll actually eat, foods that work well with the rest of your pantry. Because once you understand that, you stop buying canned meat based only on shelf life, and start buying based on usefulness. That changes everything. So next time you're standing in front of shelves full of canned meat, don't just ask which one lasts longest. Ask which one actually works. Because those are two very different questions, and once you start thinking that way, you notice the difference immediately.